Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Patrick Dang here. Now, back when I was in college looking for my first sales jobs, I wouldn't say I was the most confident person. In fact, I wasn't very much confident at all, to be honest. So really what would happen is I would go on my computer and I would look for these sales jobs and I would apply, right? And I would send in my application and they would ask me to come down for an interview and they would ask me a few questions and I would answer those questions plainly and then they would say, okay, great, Patrick, thank you for your time and we'll reach back out to you. And then what I would do is I would follow up with them, right? Which is what people typically do, follow up in an interview. And then, after a couple of days or maybe a week, they would write back and say, thank you for your time, Patrick. After consideration, blah, 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 we decided that you're not a fit to work with us. And that was it. And I wouldn't get these sales jobs. And I would go after interview over interview and the same process kept happening over and over. And I just didn't understand why people weren't hiring me. I answered all their questions, I showed up on time, I shake their hand, I followed up. Why didn't people want to hire me? It was a really big challenge for me. And was it because they found someone better? Or maybe did I mess up in an interview? Or was I too boring? I just really did not know what I needed to do or say to get these sales jobs. And over the years, after interviewing at a number of companies and getting sales roles and having my own business now and hiring other people, I finally figured out why exactly I wasn't getting these jobs. So what I'm going to do for this video is I am going to show you my best tips, tricks, and strategies for you to go in prepared for your sales interview, crush it, and get your dream job. Now, before we go ahead and get started, make sure you give this video a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you want to see more training videos like this. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first tip I have for you when it comes to nailing your sales interview is you want to make sure that you highlight your relevant past experience. Now, here's the question a lot of people always have for me. They say, Patrick, I'm just starting out in sales. I never had a sales job before. How am I supposed to convince the employer to hire me if I don't have any sales experience? And that is a totally fair question that most people have. And the thing I have to share with you is that no matter who you are, what family you're born in, or whatever your circumstances, nobody is born with experience. You have to start somewhere. So if you don't have any sales experience, you have to really rethink your idea of what sales actually is. And to me, sales is really just the art and science of persuading or even motivating someone to take an action. It doesn't always have to be financial, right? It doesn't have to be a financial transaction. It could just be persuading somebody to do something. So for example, if you don't have any sales experience, think of all the other things that you've done in your life where you had to persuade another person or motivate them to do something you would want them to do. For example, if you were a leader in any school clubs, that's one example. Or if you did any type of public speaking, or even if you helped your parents out, do a little something, maybe it's some work for their business or just help them out in some way where you have to communicate with another person. Essentially, that is selling, right? Because no matter what you do or who you are, sales is a part of everyday life, and you just have to be creative on how you can apply your past experiences and connect it with the job that you would want to get. So some specific examples, right? If you had a job, let's say working at an ice cream store or a retail store, you're dealing with customers and essentially you are selling. Or if you ever did some type of volunteer work and you're asking for donations, asking for someone to donate money to a cause is essentially selling, right? It's donating, but the art of selling is really just persuading and motivating someone to do something or a specific action. So really think about your past experiences and think about which area of your life did you have to persuade someone and connect it to the job that you want and tell that to your employer. And I understand that it's not necessarily sales experience, but if you're able to tell that story during your interview, essentially you're selling yourself and making yourself an ideal prospect for them to hire. So in that example, that's for people who don't have any sales experience. Other people out there might have a lot of sales experience, but maybe you want to transition into a new industry selling something completely different. Now here's a challenge a lot of people will have with that. A lot of people I know, especially when I was working at Oracle, I would meet a lot of people who had 5+ years of sales experience selling some type of commodity, whether it's like cable or gold or something really easy to sell and it's very straightforward and saturated. Now, when they would transition into technology sales where they're selling something like a SaaS product, software as a service, for those of you who may not be familiar, they may struggle doing that, right? And the reason why they struggle is because the sell is so different compared to what they are used to. So if you're in a situation like this where you have some sales experience that's not directly related to the new job that you want to, again, make sure that you get the elements of your old job and make it relevant for your new job, right? Essentially, when an employer is looking at you and they're deciding whether or not to hire you, they're thinking, what's the risk this guy will have? If I hire him, will he be able to perform, or will he be an expense where I have to keep paying him a salary even though he's not performing, right? So essentially, all you're really doing is de-risking yourself and thinking of all your past experiences, especially at your old job, that relate to your new job, and you want to convince your employer that those experiences are relevant and that if they hire you, you will succeed and you can learn on the job. And now what you're essentially doing is that you are selling your potential, right? So let's say you want a job, but you don't have any experience selling that specific product or service, or you never worked in that industry. And that's totally okay, because employers like to look for potential. If they see potential in you, they're willing to take a chance, assuming that you're going to learn, not make any excuses for why you fail, and really just continue on and get better at the job until you can perform at the level they would like you to perform at, right? So it's not always about your past experiences, it's about your potential and your ability to perform in the future. And so the next question you might have is, if you want to sell your potential, how exactly can you do that? And that actually brings us to our next point, which is show that you are willing to learn. Now, employers like myself and many other people that I know, they do not like working with stubborn people, because if you're stubborn and you're not willing to learn, then you'll never be able to learn new skills on the job. And if things don't go your way, the people who are stubborn are typically emotionally unstable. And if you're emotionally unstable, you are not a good fit for sales, because you're gonna face a lot of rejection. So instead, what you wanna do if you wanna get hired is you want to show your employer or potential employer that you are willing to learn, and you have to make it. You have to be honest, right? You have to understand you don't know everything and you're willing to make mistakes and try things out. Because the truth is, most people, especially when they're starting in sales or they are selling a brand new thing they never touched before, they don't start, fire right out the gate, right? It's very difficult to be, extremely good at selling, on your first try. And that's totally okay, because most people aren't the best on their first try. And I know for myself, I have to learn over time. So instead of, promising the world to this person, saying like, I'm gonna sell this for you and that for you, I'm amazing. What you wanna do is you wanna have the attitude like, hey, look, I got some sales experience that's relevant. I am willing to learn. I believe in your product, and I really see its potential, and I'm willing to go out there, try new things, learn from experience, and get better over time. If you have that attitude, employers will of course wanna hire you, because they wanna hire people with potential and people that can grow within the company and eventually become sales superstars. And another thing that you really wanna do when it comes to getting a sales job is show your employer that you are coachable, right? Because again, you don't know everything, and usually your employer knows more than you. That's why they're hiring you. So you have to show that you're willing to learn, you're not stubborn, and you're coachable, meaning that you're able to take feedback without taking offense to it, learn from your mistakes, and move on to become a better salesperson. Because really, it all comes down to your attitude. If you have a learning attitude and you have a positive attitude about these things, then you'll be able to perform at your sales job. And in fact, not only in sales, but in the other job or even in your life. It's really gonna come down to your attitude. Your attitude determines your behavior and how you act, and your behavior determines what you do on a day-to-day basis to actually become successful. So, to summarize that point, remember, you gotta have a positive attitude and have the willingness to learn and be coachable. Do not be stubborn. Do not be emotionally unstable, because that's not what people want. And so with that said, those are gonna be some of my best tips when it comes to getting your dream sales job. And remember, use your relevant past experience, sell your potential, and show your willingness to learn and be coachable. If you follow these simple tips, your chances of getting hired is going to be so much greater, and you don't have to, wait for people to get back to you and, just like deny you. This is the attitude that people want in their employees, and it's gonna really help you out if you do apply it. So with that said, if you enjoyed this video and you learned a little something, make sure you give this video a like. And if you wanna see more sales videos like this, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. So with that said, my name is Patrick Dang. Hope you guys learned a little something, and I will see you guys in the next one.